way with most people know Tasmania, they're still bombarded with all the other information they've got to know about every other brand. And I've done quite a few videos for them.
Yep.
My name's Peter Caldwell. I'm the vigneron for Dalrymple Vineyards in the Pipers River region in northeast Tasmania. But I'm also here to talk about Jansz, which is our neighbour. It's essentially across the road from Dalrymple, and a very old brand of Tasmanian sparkling wine, dedicated totally to the production of sparkling wine from Tasmanian fruit. And we're in the actual estate vineyard, and from this vineyard, this is where all the vintage material is made. We don't make any vintage material outside this particular vineyard, so it's estate grown as well. So I think it gives an identity to the wine in that it comes from one site, and it also gives a lot of characteristic to the vintages. Year to year we have, because it's a cold site, we have lots of variation from year to year about how the fruit is grown and what sort of characters influence it. So I think it's a really exciting sort of wine to be part of. So in saying that, I think what we could do might help is if we have a bit of a walk along the vineyard, and you can sort of understand a little bit about the site in which we grow the grapes. Unfortunately, the grapes were only picked last week, but we might be able to pick up some other things as we go. So
Sounds great.
Come along. So one of the strongest characteristics in this area is, you notice, is these soils, these basalt type soils. They're quite deep. They would go down sort of anywhere from sort of 1.5 to 3 meters in depth, and the vines essentially live a lot on that. We have irrigation for the very dry seasons, but essentially we can live, these vines can survive without any irrigation most seasons.
So it's basalt, so it has volcanic origins.
Yeah, it has a lot of volcanic origins, and it also has a very high organic matter. Surprisingly, one of the highest organic matter soils in Australia. Okay. It's around about sort of 7% for those people interested in that, and that also helps the vine hold a lot of nutrition and a lot of moisture, that organic matter. Okay. It helps balance a lot of the material that runs into the vineyard and the water that we have naturally coming from the sea, from rainfall. So as you can see, the canopy is a pretty standard sort of thing. We've still, in fact, we've got a bunch that was missed from, but that's typical of the Chardonnay. So these are, you can see how beautiful and clean it this year is. And they taste absolutely full of the sort of character and flavour. You can even taste the acidity in them still. Yep. But absolutely delicious, and but really potent if you eat too many. So you have Chardonnay planted right next to Pinot, it looks like. Correct, and we have these are cut on the ground. These would have been planted in maybe almost 30 years ago. These vines. Yes. Okay. And back then in Tasmania, these would have been a couple of rogue vines that snuck into the batch of Chardonnay. So we just have to go through and cut them off, and that's why they're tagged. Oh, eventually they will get removed out. It's only taken 30 years to finally get there, but we're getting there. And you can see the canopy is still really healthy at this stage of the year. We've picked the grapes, and the vines are still well within their growing season. They'll still hold these leaves for another year, so when they go into dormancy, they'll be healthy and ready for next year's season as well. So they're not under any stress. Our yields here are quite moderate, maybe around about sort of 6 to 7 tonnes per hectare, which is probably table wine levels, but from doing that, we're able to ensure that we get this sort of quality fruit. Right. I don't think there's many other things that we do different that you wouldn't see in any other vineyards. We're cane pruned and everything is done by hand. We have everything is pruned, picked, leaf plucked. Let's explain that, because you know this is a big question of cane pruning versus spur training or whatever. Show us on here, like through the example of one that's real easy to see, the differences that. I think on this side is easier. Here we go. The canes are coming from this side. There we go. So what we're looking at here, these are essentially this is a cane. So what you see here, this is a cordon. So this would have been wrapped down last winter and produces the shoots that are the fruit have been growing on this year. So what will happen this winter is we will take a shoot that was growing fruit this year. That will be cut about here, and this will then be wrapped down again by hand, and then the shoots which are going to grow from these little buds along it, they are next season's shoots, and they are going to be responsible for the crop that we have for 2020. Really, what's really important that we do here is we do a lot of shoot thinning, so you can often get a lot of crowding around the crown, cause a lot of shading, and what that can do is reduce the potential for those buds to become fruitful. So if you keep it quite open and not too much vigor and things like spur pruning, but if cane allows the shoots to be evenly spaced, then each year you have a good chance of being more fruitful. And that's really important in cool climate areas where you have cloudy conditions and you know, you have cooler conditions. Everything like this has a big impact. So we have it's a very expensive thing to do by hand, but it's the sort of things that you just have to accept when you want to be producing, you know, top quality sparkling wine.